Hey guys, I'm Pen, and this is a pen. Please excuse all the band-aids on my face. I burnt my forehead and got scratched on my nose. So, we're just gonna ignore that right now. I was trying to do kind of Sabrina hair, but I don't have curlers like rollers, you know? So I was trying to see if I could do that without rollers. Turns out you can't. And also turns out that I'm dumb and I burnt myself on the forehead. I really hope you heard that. I hope that got picked up. Anyways, today I'm going to show you how to make this bag, kind of. More like a sew along with me again. I don't really know what I'm doing half the time. There's a lot of things that if I was doing this again, I would do differently. So do as I say, not as I do. But also, I don't really plan on making another one of these. I did this because I really love the Sabrina Carpenter Rich bag that looks like it, but it's $70 and I already had the fabric. So I was like, I'm just gonna make it myself. I'm just gonna make it myself. So I did. So again, do as I say, not as I do. There's a lot of things I would do differently, but without further ado, if you want to make your own and see how I did this, keep watching. I started by cutting my paper so that I can make a pattern, which was basically just kind of drawing a heart big enough for how big I wanted the bag. I initially thought that I was gonna do like a whole heart for each thing, but I realized that I could just do it on a fold, and then I don't have to fiddle with cutting both sides of the heart. Because if I cut it on a fold, then you open it, and boom, it's a heart. So what I did was I created the heart as big as I wanted it, and then I did a 1/2 inch seam allowance all around it so that, you know, I give myself plenty of room to make mistakes. I usually do a 1/2 inch seam allowance just because I tend to make things like bigger, and when I know how much my seam allowance is supposed to be, then I usually try to stick to it, but like sometimes I get things wrong. So yeah, I realized that the heart didn't need to be both halves, so I cut it in half so that I could put it on the fold as a guide. And as you can see, I'm just using whatever random stuff is around me to weigh it down, and I have it the fabric folded up, and I'm just cutting out my little heart piece. Like I said before, the one that Sabrina has is super cute, but unfortunately it is $70 plus however much tax and shipping is, and I can't afford that right now. Hers definitely has batting in the front pocket, like the front heart, you know, so it's kind of like a pillow, and it looks more like a pillow, but I didn't want to deal with that, so I did not do that. Next, I was prepping the ruffle, so I was just kind of folding it in half because I knew I would sandwich the seam and you wouldn't be able to see it. So I folded the ruffle in half, and when I tell you, I did not make my thing long enough. I know there's a way to calculate and measure and then do some sort of math to figure out how much fabric you need to get a ruffle the size you want, depending on your fabric, blah blah blah, but like there's a rough estimate that you can get. I was lazy and I did not do that. So I needed to make a separate piece that I attached on, and I meant to have the seam facing the back, but it's not, so oh well. Then you're gonna set your machine to the longest straight stitch, and you're gonna make sure not to backstitch the ends because you want to be able to ruffle. With a piece this long, I specifically didn't go in one long stitch without like bringing it up. I broke it up so that I could ruffle each section how I wanted it and have less of a chance of the thread breaking. So I would say if you're doing something so long, then you can cut it up into you can break it up into sections so that you're not, you know, like if something gets stuck at some point, you don't end up with like breaking the entire thread. At the end of my seams with the long threads that hang up, just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere, I like to tie them off. But then I started pinning it around the heart. You want it to be, I guess, technically right sides together. So you want the edge of the seams to match up, so that once you add the second half of the heart to make, the bag, the ruffle gets sandwiched in between. I hope you can see what I'm doing, because I did not have a good camera setup. But I decided to just start with half of the heart and then clip into the other half. What I did, though, that I did not like was I thought it would be a good idea for the ruffle to end right at the point of the heart on the bottom, and that was not a good idea. I think I would do it probably on one of the straighter sides, or thought ahead more, but looking back, there was a bunch of stuff I should have done differently. So then I'm just being really careful and sewing up that seam just to make sure that the heart is, I wanted to make sure that the ruffle was attached before I tried to sandwich it between another heart piece. So I went in and I sewed it all down, and I was being really, really careful and slow to try and get the seam allowance that I wanted, and to try and get the edge to like look nice like a heart. Like when you're following around, it seems easy in context to follow around the edge, but when you're sewing, it's more annoying. Also, I didn't want any of the ruffles to get caught underneath and get stuck, so I was constantly checking to make sure that nothing was stuck underneath. With this part, I wasn't doing the 1/2-inch seam allowance, I was doing a smaller seam allowance, so that when I did the 1/2-inch seam allowance, you wouldn't see this thread at all. You wouldn't see this. And then I just kind of folded it out to see if it looked cute, and it did, so I moved on to the other side. Then I was clipping second half of the heart, again, right sides together, and with the, I guess you can see a lot better now how the ruffle is sandwiched in between that. By the way, these clips are a lifesaver. They are so much easier to use. Again, like I said, this is where I got to the point of where the ends of the ruffle were, and because of the way I positioned them, they came out a little wonky. So I'm kind of sad about that, but it's not the biggest deal. It's just kind of annoying, and I wish that I tried to figure out a different way to do it. Anyways, then I just sewed those two sides up. I left a hole in the top, an opening, so that it would be like a bag already. Do not sew all the way around. I left maybe like a 10-inch wide opening at the top, so that I could flip it inside out and I could do a whole bag line. If you don't know how to bag line a bag specifically, maybe look up someone else's tutorial, because this is not a tutorial. I'm not good at this. But as you can see, now I have like a little bag, and again, you can see now I'm so not happy with how the bottom came out. It came out a little too rounded, but whatever. I then clipped in my two remaining heart pieces. I don't think I said this, but I did 4 so that I could bag line it. And I left the same amount of opening near the top and just put right sides together and clipped them, and somehow I ended up only basically grabbing bicolors, and then sewed up the sides, again leaving an opening at the top for the opening of the bag, and so that I could bag line it. Also, when you get to the point of the heart, you want to make sure your needle is in the fabric, so if it automatically goes up when you stop sewing, put the needle down, lift the foot, twist it around, and continue, because corners are annoying like that, and you just got to do it that way. And then once I finished doing that, I back stitched it all together, and I pulled it out to show that now we have a bag. And then I started working on the straps. I decided to make mine, I think, about 23 inches by 3 inches. no, 23 inches by 1 inch. 2 inch? What? Yes. 23 inches by 1 inch. Jeez, my brain is not working. And so that means that when I cut out my fabric, it was 23 inches. I actually did 24-ish inches to give me seam allowance on the tops and bottoms, and then I also did 3 inches across to give me seam allowance on the sides. Then I folded them up and sewed them. I didn't iron them down before I sewed them. I just sewed it, clipped them in half, and then sewed them. I didn't show you guys me turning them inside out, but it was so satisfying. I love turning when they're not annoying, when they're like large enough that you can turn them smoothly. I love turning the little tubes and straps. It's so satisfying because it just like swoops, and it's so nice. And I meant to film that, but I didn't. So anyways, here's me sewing up the side, giving again my 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've said that too many times now, it doesn't sound real. And I did the same thing to the second strap. Part of the way through this, I realized that I could burn the fabric to get it to stop fraying because it's polyester and it would melt. And I should have been doing that the whole time because I have so many blue fuzzies everywhere now. But I didn't. It's fine. I'll just be covered in blue for the rest of my life. After I finished up the straps, I did iron them. I don't think I videoed that either, but I tried to like press the seam flat open and then you turn it inside out. Yeah, here, see, you can see. And then when you turn it inside out, you can get like a nice clean edge. It didn't super work, but it was fine. But I really tried to get my seams to look crisp, but it's just a little difficult. Anyways, next I took the handles, straps, and did it right sides together, and I measured to make sure that they were set equidistant and where I wanted them to be, and then I just sewed them up. And since they were tiny little seams, I just did it really quickly. And again, because I want this to be sandwiched in between, you'll see I did like a smaller seam allowance than I would be doing in the future, just so that once it's all sewn together, you wouldn't see any threads or seams peeking through by accident. Again, I did the other side and I matched it up so that they would be even. You'll get it at this point. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your bags and you're going to have them right sides together. And then you're going to start, used the middle of the dip in the heart as my point of reference to make sure that they lined up properly. And then I started clipping it together so that I could sew those top parts together. You want to leave an opening so that you can flip the entire thing inside out. Remember that all the ruffles and all the straps are inside right now. So you need to leave an opening so that you can flip it inside out. I left about, I'd say like a 3 to 4, maybe a 5 inch opening on one of the sides, so that once I was done sewing up all my seams, I would be able to turn it inside out. That's the whole thing with bag lining. You need to be able to flip it inside out. And you're going to have to either have a little bit of a seam showing or hand sew the opening closed so that it looks nice. Again, when you get to the point of the heart, make sure that your needle is in the fabric, lift up your foot and turn it around before continuing around the heart. My heart shape, I did my best to get it straight, but it did end up a little bit wonky. It's difficult to do rounded things on a sewing machine. It's hard to, if you've never sewed before, it's hard to sew in a straight line too. I don't know. And then I just sewed it all up again, and you're gonna see in a second, it takes a little bit of effort to turn it right side out, but it's gonna be so good because you're gonna have a nice clean inside of your bag, and it's gonna be that same satiny finish fabric, and it's gonna be really nice to have like a full, clean, finished bag. As you can see, I struggled a little bit to get it open. And I'm sorry that the angle's so bad, but then I started hand sewing the opening closed so that I would have a nice flat edge. What I did was whip stitching. I don't know how to explain it, so I would suggest you go find a different tutorial that's like specifically on whip stitching. Because again, this is not really a tutorial, this is more of a sew along with me. And I'm really sorry about the the lighting. I think something smudged on my camera. But this is how it turned out, and I'm so happy with it. It's so cute. I did iron everything so that it would be nice and flat, and I think it's so adorable, and I'm really hoping that they let me into the venue with it when I go see Sabrina, because it matches my outfit perfectly. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are gonna do this and follow this tutorial, that's not a tutorial, but whatever, let me know in the comments. Did you already buy the bag from Sabrina? Is it as amazing as it looks? Because I love it so much. I just cannot afford a $70 tote bag right now. Let me know. If you have any tips for me, oh my god, let me know. Are you going to see Sabrina on tour? I am, I'm so excited. Let me know. Just, tell me all your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow my Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you next time. Mwah!